Recording in progress.
Okay, screen in. Let me explain the whole thing. That will give you time to copy the rest of it. Let me give you a heads up before I start. It's a standalone topic. What I mean by that is এটার আগে যা করে আসছি ওটার সাথে লিংক নাই, পরের যা করবো ওটার সাথে কোনো কিছু নাই. It's just a topic on its own. Okay, so আজকে যা বুঝাবো should be everything that you need to know. All right. So and then the question asked actually is a very good thing because the variations of questions are not much as well. So জিজ্ঞেস করলে মোটামুটি একই জিনিস জিজ্ঞেস করে. Okay, so it's called internal resistance. And what is it? So let's try to understand. So the idea comes from how batteries work. Okay, so you have a battery here or a cell, and if I place a resistor here in series to my cell, right? So let's say I place a resistor here in series. You'll find that it's very easy to figure out what the current and voltage and everything is because এটা যদি হচ্ছে EMF হয় 10 volts, right? Let's say the EMF here is 10 volts, and I'm asking you to find the voltage across the resistor R here. It's pretty straightforward. What is it? Like, what is the voltage across this resistor that you see here? 10, right? Cannot, because according to which law? The Kirchhoff voltage law. What does the Kirchhoff voltage law state? KVL. The sum of EMF in a loop is equal to what? The sum of potential difference in that loop, right? So if I create a loop here this way or that way, whichever way I create a loop here, right? There's only one EMF here, which amounts to how much? 10 volts. And there's only one PD here, which amounts to how much as well? 10 volts. And this is generally the case. But this is based on quite a few assumptions out there. So assumptions will allow me to state for it. Because exam you'll get an answer and they'll say that reality is not that. So you need to state why. So one of the biggest assumptions that we make here is that the wire has what resistance, right? Has negligible resistance, which is not true, by the way. Okay, it does have some resistance. Yes, the ammeter and voltmeter that we use in our lab can't really like recognize any changes because of this. Okay, so changes are so small that you normally wouldn't notice them, but it's there. Okay, so the wire has negligible resistance. আমরা আরেকটা assumption করি about the voltmeter. এটা actually a level say আসার chance কম, but you never know. So can you tell me what's the assumption about the voltmeter? No. I was just going through your notes because I was given to the other current level batch, so you have done it. So what was it? The assumption of an ammeter and the assumption of a voltmeter. Yes, very good. But how do you ensure that happens? Exactly. So voltmeters are assumed to have in theory infinite resistance. And এটা হয় যেটা যেটা voltmeter ভিতরে কি যাবে কোনো current pass করবে না, and that's my circuit. Okay, because if you do have your voltage or your current divided, that's not series anymore. It becomes one volt circuit. So if I want to avoid current down there, right, I can use infinite resistance. And let's say I have an ammeter here. Ammeters also had an assumption. You remember what was the assumption for an ammeter? Yeah, it had negligible resistance or zero resistance. Why? Ammeters have negligible resistance. Why? কি বলছিলাম? The actual circuit performance, so very close. What do you say? Oh no, total resistance is the problem with that. Yeah, the correct answer is so that the ammeter doesn't use up the voltage from the battery. কারণ আমার এখান থেকে আমি যখন 10 volts দিচ্ছি, right? I'm using my battery here to provide 10 volts. My assumption is will only take my voltage, the resistor, right? But the problem is that if you have 10 volts here and 10 volts are used up here, I can't have any resistance here, because if you have a resistance here, what should the concept be? There must be a voltage here and there, which both should add up to how much? 10, right? But my point is, ammeter key actually part of a circuit, or it's an equipment to measure current? No. Is the ammeter's purpose in the circuit just for measurement, or is it functional? It's just measurement, right? আমি চাবো না যে ammeter দিয়ে আমার circuit change হয়ে যায়, right? So এখানে যদি আমার ammeter resistance থাকে, and if I provide my ammeter here, right, the circuit changes, and that's something that I don't want, right? I just want to know what the amount of current is. I don't want to change my circuit, and I can only ensure that by using an ammeter that has what resistance? Negligible resistance. Overall, it doesn't hinder the flow of current. That's the basic idea, okay? So এগুলো assumptions আমি আবারও বলতেছি, ammeter voltmeter তোমাদের মনে হয় 80 কম, I don't recall, আচ্ছা, but it's something you should know, all levels যেহেতু ছিল, right? Now we are going to add one more assumption, and the chapter is this basically, acha, the fourth assumption. So the fourth assumption is of the battery. So it turns out batteries are extremely flawed. Okay, let me show you how. So do you guys know what's inside a battery? A typical pencil battery. Yeah, I mean, it's lithium ion batteries to fancy. So pencil battery lithium ion. Lithium ion batteries are cell phone batteries. তারপর হচ্ছে car batteries. So car batteries মানে হচ্ছে electric car batteries, not the lead acid. So what are your typical pencil batteries made up of? Acha, but what element? Carbon. Acha. You guys never broke, like, you tore apart a battery, or no? Okay, anyways, I don't expect you to, but anyways, the thing is that if you have like a faulty battery, যে স্টিলের কেসিং থাকে ওটা খুলে আসলে দেখবে একটা আলাদা কেসিং থাকে ভিতরে, সিলভার কালারের, রাইট? ওইটার ভিতরে it's just pure chaos. So I'll show you what's inside that. So if you go inside one of these batteries, right, it looks something like this actually. And yeah, so it's not something, you know, very exciting. So Kulona, it's fine. So it's basically there's this electrolysis going on, right? For that you have some metal here, mostly magnesium, okay, and they use sulfuric acid, okay, and that process produces what? Electricity, right? It takes the chemical energy and converts that to what? Electrical energy. So that's how it looks like inside your typical battery. Do you understand? Now the problem is, আমরা যখন একটা battery use করি, we assume that the batteries are perfect. মানে হচ্ছে whatever the voltage rating is, it'll provide us that voltage, right? Turns out batteries don't do that. Okay, so batteries যে ভিতরের যে স্ট্রাকচারটা is actually very ineffective and inefficient. And what it does is the battery itself, right, uses up some of the voltage itself. মানে ও তোমাকে দেওয়ার আগে ও নিজে কিছু কনজিউম করে ফেলে, and ও যদি কিছু নিজে কনজিউম করে ফেলে, that 10 volts that's rated here, মানে you know the manufacturer আমাকে বলছে that this is 10 volts, right, will never be 10 volts, because whenever you use it in your circuit, what will the battery do? Eat up some of the voltage. How to picture this better? So it's a better picture করার জন্য we have a very nice solution here. The solution is we will now redraw batteries in a different way. আমরা আবার battery ওভাবে draw করব না। The battery's right symbol, the correct symbol, is basically you draw a battery, right? And ওইটার পাশে you draw a resistor, small resistor, and you circle this whole thing in a dotted line. This is the correct symbol for a battery. So wherever you go in, you know, actual practical scenarios, battery draw kora hoy. So battery key thake ekta EMF thake, the one the manufacturer tells you is supposed to be provided, right? But unfortunately, every battery, okay, this is inevitable, every battery has a what inside it? A resistor, right? And this resistor's value is given small r. It's called the internal resistance, right? The problem is this resistor is actually not there. It is actually the sum of all the imperfections inside the battery imagined as one, a small resistor. Don't you what I just meant? So if I open up a battery, right, I tear up a battery, will I find a resistor inside? No, থাকলে তো ফেলে দিতাম, তাহলে I'm back to a perfect battery, right? So there's no resistor inside that you'll find. So the problem is যে এখানে যদি নোটিস করো কি কি থাকে এখানে, there's a terminal here, there's an electrode here, there's an electrode there, there's a metal that goes to the inside. Are these like perfect conductors? No, right? What do they have? Resistance. So when you add up all these small bits and pieces of short resistance totally, it ends up giving you what? A net resistance, right? আমরা ওইটাকে consider করি as what? Internal resistance. So if somebody asks you to find internal resistance practically, right? It's impossible because তুমি একটা ব্যাটারি খুলে কিছু পাবা না. The battery's setup structure is the internal resistance, okay? Like the way it's made. So আমরা ওটাকে কি করি? আমরা ওটাকে reimagine kori as for our math, simplicity of our math, that there's actually a what inside the battery, a resistor. A resistor je value ta paba is actually the sum of what? All these small bits and pieces resistances that you have there, okay? Now, some unfortunate things about this resistance, okay? It is not same for any two batteries. So if you buy a pack of batteries, সবগুলোর মধ্যে এটা different হবে because the way the materials are inside are not the same. একটু এদিক ওদিক হয়, so valueটা vary করে, okay? Also, the idea is that there's no way to get rid of it. So you will never find a battery, right, that doesn't have internal resistance. It's inevitable, okay? So you will have batteries with internal resistance. The thing that you can aspire for is to have a battery with the very lowest possible internal resistance, but zero about it, okay? So you have very expensive batteries out there, or the internal resistance is like really low, right? But it's not what the zero. It has to be there. It's just how the batteries are made, right? So this is how internal resistance looks like in a battery. So this is your internal resistance. Now, what's the consequence of this? মানে এটা যদি হয়, আমরা যখন কোয়েশ্চেন করি তোমরা দেখবে মাঝে মাঝে কোয়েশ্চন থাকে a battery has negligible internal resistance. Last class এ করছিলাম আমরা, তার মানে you can ignore this, right? But reality তো হচ্ছে there is internal resistance. So the question is, if there is internal resistance, right, what's the problem? So problemটা তোমাদেরকে একটু দেখাই. We'll have to do a small math here. So imagine I have a battery here. Our manufacturer কিন্তু হচ্ছে intentions are most of the times straightforward. They want to give you 10 volts. ওদের কিন্তু voltage কম দিয়ে লাভ নাই. In fact, they'll have to face the law in many places where they give you less voltage. So they will try to give you how much voltage? Full 10, right? So the chemical capability কিন্তু 10 volts থাকে, right? But then if I take it and place it in a circuit, right? And I place a resistor here, let's say. A resistor to হচ্ছে 100 ohms. And I set this circuit up, and the internal resistance here is 0.2 ohms. I want you guys to find for me what is the voltage across the 10 ohm resistor. Do this math. Could be easy. O-level standard is easy. Find me the voltage here. This voltage. Find the voltage here. Nine point. Bakira. 9.98. That's it. So, we first do V equals to IR. Total voltage is what? 10. Total current is unknown. What is the total resistance of the circuit? The 0.2 and the 100 are what to each other? Series, right? I'm going to change because I want the bit to be more dramatic. Ohms change your answer plus 2 micro resistance. This is a current in the circuit. 10 divided by 102, 0.0098 ampere. So to find the voltage here, finally, V equal IR is going to be how much? 0.098. The resistance is how much? 100, right? So that gives me how much? 8 per kichashe? 0 volts. Okay, look at this. 8 problem, okay? So problem ta hocche, try to understand the issue. The problem is that I have a battery that the manufacturer told me gives me how much voltage? 10, right? So to give you context, etar upore like bold kore bor kore লেখা 6 volts, right? It's a lie, obviously. কারণ হচ্ছে আমি কোন 6 পাবো না এখান থেকে because of what? Yeah, because of the internal resistance here. Internal resistance খুবই বাজে হয়। Now the problem is manufacturer কিন্তু try করছে to provide what? 6, because the chemicals provided inside should give you how much? 6, right? So এই যে এখানে যদি দেখো, how much is the manufacturer's claim? 10, right? But problem হচ্ছে when I attach my appliance here, right? How much do I get though? 9.8, right? And that's because voltage loss হয়েছে। Where did the voltage get lost? Man, 0.2 volts হারাই গেল না? 10 এর থেকে 9.8 is 0.2 difference, right? Where did it get lost? Yeah, it got lost inside the internal resistance here. যে এখানে যে রেজিস্টারটা আছে, এই রেজিস্টারটা কি করছে ভোল্টেজটাকে কনজিউম করে ফেলছে।